60 Minutes Rewind.
As the coronavirus pandemic sweeps through the country, panic and fear have caused a run on hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and guns. Retailers tell us they have never seen such a surge in firearm sales. One kind of weapon that has been selling out is a build-it-yourself firearm known as a ghost gun because it skirts most federal gun laws. There's no background check and no serial number, making ghost guns invisible to police and almost impossible to trace when used in a crime. We were surprised that it is all perfectly legal. After a year and a half of reporting, we discovered that ghost guns, once mainly popular with gun enthusiasts, have also become a weapon of choice for criminals, manufactured by gangs and used in mass shootings.
So this is ATF's Firearms Reference Library.
We sought out America's top gun cops, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF, to find out exactly what a ghost gun is. Thomas Chittum, ATF's Assistant Director of Field Operations, gave us rare access to its West Virginia weapons repository and told us the latest additions here are ghost guns.
What's the difference between these two guns?
Well, this is a firearm that was manufactured by a licensed manufacturer. The law requires them to mark them with certain markings, including a serial number. This is not marked. No background check is completed when you purchase it. It's made at home by somebody using commonly available hand tools.
So they both do the same thing?
They both shoot.
As Chittum says, usually if you bought a gun at a store, it would have a traceable serial number, and you would need to pass a background check under federal law. A ghost gun can circumvent all of that because it's put together from unfinished, untraceable parts.
It's virtually invisible to you in government.
It also makes it challenging to keep it out of the hands of people who are not allowed to possess firearms.
Up to that day, I never heard the term ghost gun. So I didn't even know what that was.
Brian Muehlberger found out one day last November. There had been a mass shooting at his daughter's high school, and 15-year-old Gracie was murdered.
They bring in one of the head doctors, and just like you see on the movies, he sits across from you with that real quiet, kind of solemn stare right at you. And I just remember saying, I'm like, please, no, don't tell me the bad news, please.
This was the aftermath at Saugus High School in Santa Clarita, California. A typical Thursday morning disrupted. The quad littered with backpacks after students dropped everything and fled for their lives. That's where Gracie was waiting for friends before class.
She was about as close as I am to you right now. Shot her right through the backpack and right through her chest. And thankfully, he didn't aim at the back of her head. At least we got to see her face one more time.
This senseless act of violence.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva arrived at the scene not long after the shots were fired.
This kid shows up at school. What happened?
He shows up at school. He has a backpack. His mom had packed the lunch for him. In the backpack was also a .45 auto. It was loaded.
Carrying that loaded ghost gun was Nathaniel Burhow, a high school junior. In addition to Gracie, he shot and killed Dominic Blackwell and wounded 3 other students. He saved the last round for himself.
He was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm. Just turned, that was his birthday.
How does a 16-year-old get his hands on a gun? He's underage.
Underage, but his father was a gun enthusiast and was in possession of a lot of weapons. They were ultimately confiscated because he was detained for psychiatric evaluation.
So the father was not supposed to have guns.
And all the weapons were removed legally at the time.
Sheriff Villanueva suspects that's when the father turned to ghost guns, and his son got his hands on one. 6 months later, the Saugus investigation is still ongoing.
This is the actual weapon that was used in the Saugus shooting. It is a ghost gun. It was assembled. We don't know by who, but we believe it was the father of the suspect, and it came into possession then of the shooter himself.
Ghost gun parts can be used to fabricate a handgun, or even an AR-15. The parts are widely available across the country in stores and online. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, they have been flying off the shelves. They're shipped right to your door, not much harder than ordering a pizza. We bought a kit online for $575 that has everything you need to make a 9mm handgun. It came in parts like IKEA furniture, but for firearms, and even includes the drill bits you need to put the gun together in the comfort of your own home. Why is it so easy to buy? Because federal gun law only regulates this part, called a frame or a lower receiver. But until you drill out these holes and file down this bit here, in the eyes of federal law, it's just a hunk of metal, or in this case, plastic.
What you do is you get your lower here.
YouTube videos will show you step by step how to turn that piece of plastic or metal into a gun.
So if I can do this, anybody can do this.
So you have pretty much this open season. Anyone who is a prohibited person that wants to arm themselves now has a very easy way to do it.
But if you're a felon or judged mentally unfit, for example, federal law says you're not supposed to have any kind of firearm. Build a ghost gun? No one knows you have it.
These are all ghost guns?
Everything here is a ghost gun.
Ironically, California has some of the strictest state gun laws in the U.S., and yet it's the epicenter of this growing problem.
Where on your list of worries do these ghost guns fall?
Well, along with terrorism, active shooter, this is way up there on the list.
Villanueva oversees the largest sheriff's office in the country, and he says over the last year, the number of ghost guns turning up in LA County investigations has jumped by 50%.
Domestic assault, assault with a deadly weapon, distribution of child pornography, possession of child pornography, armed with a ghost gun. Domestic violence, assault with a deadly weapon, drug deal.
It's an epidemic that has blindsided police across the country. Without a serial number or paperwork, ghost guns are very difficult for law enforcement to trace or track. Which is why Thomas Chittum and the ATF are struggling to get a handle on the problem.
How many of these guns are on the streets? You have no idea?
No, I have no idea.
And how many crimes are being committed by these guns? You have no idea?
Well, not with precision. They still represent a minority of the firearms that are being used in crimes, but we do see that they're increasing significantly and rapidly.
So you have no idea how many guns are out there, and you don't know who has them?
Right.
Here's what our reporting found, contacting local and national law enforcement over the course of a year and a half. At least 38 states and Washington, D.C. have seen criminal cases involving ghost guns. There were at least 4 mass shootings.
Drop that gun!
Violent police shootouts. High-profile busts of gangs making and selling ghost guns on the street. And cases involving terrorism and white supremacists. But Demetrius Karras says that's not his clientele at all.
You can get the whole gun out the door for about $550.
He is a former Marine and one of the first to get into the business of selling ghost gun parts in California 10 years ago.
Between 300 and 500,000 individual units have passed through my hands.
Over what period of time?
The last 10 years.
Sounds like a lot to me. That's just from your store?
That's just from what I've been involved in. There's a lot of companies that are now in this industry, and there are multiple millions of these things that have been created throughout the country at this point.
So who is buying these kits?
It's guys in hard hats. It's also the people who like to work with their hands and do this sort of thing anyway.
I'd say hogwash to that entire idea.
Hogwash?
Hogwash, absolute hogwash. The only people that are interested in that are not enthusiasts into, tinker around with machines.
Hobbyists?
No, they're not hobbyists. These are people that should never have a firearm, and that's how they found a way to get one.
Karras insists the store where he now works, which touts just how invisible their ghost gun parts are,
That thing looks cool. I really like it.
has safeguards to prevent ghost gun parts from getting into the wrong hands.
And what are they?
I'm not going to get too much into it because it would undermine our ability to use them.
Do you ever worry that someone who's buying one of these kits might have mental illness or, be planning to use an AR-15 for something that's horrible, unimaginable?
Does a car salesman worry that someone might take a car that they've sold to them and drive it through a crowd of people?
So you see them as the same?
I do.
The story will continue after this.
Karas's home state, California, is phasing in a law to regulate ghost gun parts like regular firearms. 3 other states and the District of Columbia have passed their own restrictions. But Villanueva says that's not enough.
We need national laws, or federal, from Congress, that covers a total ban on the creation or the selling of these ghost gun kits.
State by state is not going to do it?
It doesn't, because then you can just defeat it by going to another state.
Hey, what's up, dude?
In today's political climate, new federal gun control measures seem unlikely.
Cool. You're all set, man. Thanks a lot, dude.
So that leaves it to the ATF to determine what is and is not a gun. Currently, ATF says this is not a gun. But the ATF has changed its thinking on similar issues recently. After the 2017 massacre in Las Vegas, the ATF and the Department of Justice banned bump stocks, an accessory that turns semi-automatic weapons into machine guns.
ATF Special Agents.
Former acting director of the ATF, Thomas Brandon, helped implement that change and was ready to recommend to his bosses at the Department of Justice that they reclassify certain ghost gun kits, like the one we ordered, as firearms because of how easy they are to put together.
You were alarmed at what you were seeing?
Yeah. And so I said, well, right now we have a public safety concern.
You thought that the ATF should reclassify these kits as firearms?
Yes. As the head of the agency at the time, I said, I'm going to do everything I can for public safety with my team. If you want to buy a kit and make your own gun, it's just going to have a serial number on it.
Thomas Brandon retired last spring before any action was taken. We asked the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives if there was any follow-up on Brandon's plans, and were told, quote, ATF routinely reviews our practices, procedures, and determinations. However, it would be inappropriate to comment on internal discussions. Thomas Chittum says the ATF is doing everything it can.
Is this just one of those political hot potatoes that nobody wants to touch?
Well, gun law is one of the most divisive topics in America, and ATF sometimes finds itself in the middle.
As for Saugus, it was the first high school mass shooting with a ghost gun. Brian Muehlberger, a pistol owner himself, says if something isn't done about ghost guns, it won't be the last.
I'm not against owning guns, but I also believe strongly that this is a serious problem that's occurring that no one knew about. So I just feel like something needs to be done. It's become too easy.